AP Human Geography. All right. We are, it's kind of been a strange week, folks, and we are a little off our pace. And so I'm going to run you through, it's just going to be about 4 slides here. And pretty much kind of roll you through. We just got to start going where we left off down here at the bottom of this slide on kind of an introduction into population pyramids. Heck, you guys know the vocabulary, and so I want to run through these slides to kind of give you the other side of that and make sure that we have a good understanding of what all of this exactly means. Okay, so here we go. Like I said, about 4 slides here. I'm going to kind of move relatively quickly. All right, so section B here, we're going to jump right into the nuts and bolts of how to analyze and read a population pyramid, okay? You guys are going to be doing some work with population pyramids early next week and making your own population pyramids and doing a little bit of some analysis work because, well, like as I told you guys, it's going to be on the test. It's going to be on the test, okay? Cohorts is one of your vocab terms. And when you look at this population pyramid of the United States from about 15 years ago, you see these age groupings, okay? We start from age 0 and then all the way up to 100 plus up at the top. And this what we call the vertical axis is where those cohorts are arranged. And each of those age groupings is a cohort, okay? So that 0 to 4 would be your first cohort, 5 to 9, right on up the top of the line, okay? Those are your cohorts. And then when we are putting together or analyzing population pyramids, you can always be rest assured, okay? Always going to be on the left side in blue. Yeah, I know, so traditional. Are going to be males, and then over on the right side, red or pink. Sorry, guys, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just teaching it. Is for females. Okay, and that's standard when you're working with population pyramids. They won't try to get cute with you and throw something different at you just to try to mix you up. All right. Values on the horizontal axis, so down along here, okay? Those are usually going to be, like it says, a percent or an absolute number. And so we could be talking about millions, something like that. And that's what we have in here is population in millions. Sometimes they'll break it down smaller, but sometimes it might be a percentage as well, okay? And so you just always have to take a look at what kind of information you have that goes along with your population pyramid, and it'll kind of break it down for you and let you know exactly what the value is you're working with, so you understand how many people are in each of those bars. Each of those bars represent. Okay. And then population pyramids, well, some of them we will work with, and even when we're doing some assignment work with population pyramids next week, we're going to focus on country scale. And it's a tool that, again, it's very easy to be able to compare country to country to country by if we're doing some population analysis and then that demographics and looking at the full breakdown. But you can do population pyramids for a state, for a local area, a county, a city. So just understand they can be at any scale you choose to make them, as long as you've got the data to be able to put it together. Okay, you'll notice this one, just to be a little cute on us, it's still got everything else straight there, but they have put that vertical axis over here off to the side. All right, I prefer the ones that are here right down the middle, but every once in a while you will bump into those. It's just kind of like, I don't know, got to be different. All right. Let's see, determining population trends and patterns. So that here we can talk a little bit about what exactly is it we see when we're taking a look at some of these. So you might remember them talking about this on the little TED Talk video that we watched, and this whole kind of idea that when you see a really, really wide base and then it tapers up to a little kind of skinny point like that, that is where you can safely assume that you're looking at a population group that is in what we call a rapid growth population kind of a stage. Okay, lots and lots of kids being born. All right, and then whatever it is about that country, there's a pretty rapid and gradual forces that call for people dying out as they get older. And like I said, in a lot of our kind of less developed countries that maybe struggle a bit more with poverty, things like that, we have a tendency to see more of that kind of a shape to a population pyramid, really wide base, and then just tapering up to the top there. All right. And then you'll see some examples like this one. And this is where you have things that are a little bit more in a sense of stability. A lot of times someone would probably be safe to assume, we never want 100%, but generally safe to assume that you're probably looking at a developed country there, okay? Has a very stable, birth rate going on. You will only start to see it begin to taper when you start to reach that point where people, just because of age and natural causes that are starting to take effect, when people tend to start dying. But as you look through a good chunk of this, there's the base is slightly wider, which you might want to see there just to kind of maintain population. But very, very, like it says over there, very stable. Okay. So that's kind of a couple really basic examples for you to kind of consider there. All right, and here we're going to jump in and we're going to look at how population pyramids are impacted by a few different kinds of factors. Okay, and talked about this in that TED Talk video as well. All right, and this one that you see of Russia. And that's going back again sometime, 15, 16 years ago. And so, we will see this in other countries as well. I don't want to just keep leaning on Russia. There's kind of think about countries that are in conflict right now, whether we're talking about Ukraine, whether we're talking about in the Middle East. You are very likely going to see some of these kinds of impacts on population pyramids there. With Russia, when we're looking at 2009, where you see this right in here, okay? Where you see that real narrowing out, that's your impact from World War II. All right, when the Russians lost 27 million people, and that were more than any other country involved in World War II, and you can visually see it there. Okay, there's some other crazy things going on there, but we're not going to talk about those. We're going to stick on, when it talks about the impacts of war, and like I said, particularly males. I know a lot of militaries nowadays, also including women, and increasingly also in combat roles. But we haven't seen a major, and hopefully we don't, but a major significant conflict that has made major use of women in combat roles. So. Mostly what we see right now is where it impacts male population cohort groups on that side. Okay, and then you'll also sometimes you're going to see as a kind of a secondary impact of war is that there's going to be a birth deficit. Okay, some of it just makes common sense in that a lot of the men might be away fighting. And so if the men are away, it's just going to make it more difficult to have children at a regular rate that a country may have been used to. Okay. You also sometimes have a little bit of uncertainty about the future that has kind of a depressing impact on childbirth. Times of war are times of stress because usually in most wars you don't have a 100% clear view that you're going to win. And some people may be concerned about bringing a child into a world that they can't predict, what might be happening. Okay, so that also we can throw in there into that impact of war category. And again, when we see that take place in those kinds of situations, that is again going back to one of our vocabulary terms, birth deficit. Okay, all right. Another impact that we see on those population pyramids is going to be our baby booms, our baby busts, and our baby echoes. Okay, all kinds of stuff there. So the baby booms, yes, a lot of times we see these in two main kind of areas that really play a major role. Oftentimes after a war, and interestingly enough, folks, this happens whether you win or lose the war. Okay, typically after the soldiers go home, won or lost, people have a urge to want to try to get things back to normal. And so you're going to oftentimes see these baby booms happen in countries, whether they are victors or the losers in a war. Okay, it's just kind of people. I mean, husbands are back from the war, and it's like, win or lose, let's get back to the lives that we were living that were disrupted by the war. Okay, now when we talk about the baby boom that happens in the United States, those years that I give you there, and I put boomers with a capital B there because I'm referring to the baby boom of the U.S. That one's going to be doubled with the fact that after World War II, the United States went into a period of financial prosperity that went all the way up to the mid 60s. Probably one of the longest stretches we've had in our history, about 20 years there, where times were good. This was back in the glory years when dad went to work, mom stayed at home, and washed dishes and did laundry and waited for the kids to come home from school, and you could still afford to go on vacations, and it was kind of the single income household, and and everyone kind of 2 cars in the driveway and a new house, and and a lot it was the United States came out of World War II. We were a superpower. We had more financial power than any other country in the world, and it was reflected in how we lived, and it was reflected in our birth rate. Okay, and so when we see that boomer generation, what historically is considered to be the biggest boom the United States has ever seen in its population, it's both powered by that combination of coming out of a major war, and then that stretch of really, really solid financial times for the United States. Okay. Again, just understand other countries that were impacted by World War II. Other countries have been impacted by other wars. Wars that have happened in Southeast Asia, wars that have happened, you can pretty much point anywhere. And a lot of times you'll see some form of a baby boom after the war. Okay. Some of it might not be as big as what we did, but again, it'll happen. Baby bust. And then this is what happens and this is kind of where I get caught. The year I'm born puts me right on the cusp between the baby boomer generation, which is odd because to me that's my parents, and then Generation X, Gen X. I'm like right on the cusp. And what we see is, with Gen X, that generation still very big, but it's smaller than the boomer generation. Okay. By the time we're moving into the 1970s, suddenly we're starting to see some financial difficulties in the United States. We start dealing with some things like a major oil crisis. And then going into the early 1980s, we hit a major recession financially. And those have an impact on birth rate as well. And that's where we see the baby bust. Okay. And it's the fact that you're not going to maintain this huge, this huge boom of babies. It's going to decline. And so what you see on that illustration over there is, with each passing generation after those baby boomers, you see that the average births are starting to decrease. Okay. And that's what we refer to as that baby bust. All right. Is that, it's like after every boom, there comes a bust. Might have learned about that if you learned about the California Gold Rush, maybe. Some American history. Well, never mind. I won't distract you with that. Okay. And then second wave boom, which is what some people refer specifically to Gen X as. And say that Gen X is an example of an echo. Okay. And again, another one of our vocab terms. You can drag up and take a look at what was on the vocab sheet for what an echo is. But again, it is that idea that, it's like, think about an echo, hello, 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 hello. It gets quieter, quieter. That's kind of what population is doing. Okay. Is that population is with each successive generation, it's getting, the boom is getting less and less and less and less, to now we get to the point here where we're looking at, millennials and Gen Z, and they're having far fewer babies than Gen X did, way fewer babies than the baby boomer generation did, that kind of thing. Okay, we're seeing those echoes and the impact that they have on population. All right. And then let's see, common anomalies. I think I'm going to throw you some examples of this. So the term anomaly is when you just have, like you see on this population pyramid, really weird stuff going on. Okay. Hold on just a sec here. I had a little scratch in my throat there. Wasn't going to make you sit and listen to me, cough and gag. This is population pyramid for the Middle Eastern country of Qatar. And I forget, I got my picture so small, even I can barely make it. I think it's 2015. And what was going on in Qatar, one of those countries very, very wealthy from oil, small but very wealthy. And they were going on a major building boom in the early 2000s. I mean, just, high rises and all kinds of incredible, amazing architecture. Problem is the population of Qatar, there weren't enough people to do all the work. And so they started specifically going to neighboring countries and offering men, okay, these just, incredible financial packages, incentives to come to Qatar and to live there for a while and to work on construction projects, help basically your building and things like that. And you're going to make just crazy good money. And then, when the building projects end, you can go back home and, boom, you look what you've done. Look what you've been, money you've been able to save, what you can do with that. Okay. So what that does during the time frame when that is happening is all of a sudden you see this just incredible bulge over here in the male population in Qatar, right? Nothing's really going on in any really big major way, shape, or form on the female side. Because they want men for construction workers because only men can build things. I don't know. No, I don't think that's the case. But, a lot of Middle Eastern countries do have a little bit more kind of old-fashioned, traditional kind of ideas about that sort of thing, right? And then, what you got going on there? That would be an example of an anomaly, kind of something a little odd and unusual that doesn't seem to follow the other regular rules of our population pyramids, all right? Let's see, another example. So if you see longer bars, okay, if you see longer bars on a population pyramid, kind of down lower, maybe in those cohorts, 18 to 25 years old, you can usually, if there's nothing else that is pointing out to it, you can conclude, you can kind of, again, you kind of deduce from that maybe the location that you're focusing on, if it's like a population pyramid for just a city, okay, and you see these really long bars down there, that 18 to 25 age range for men, for women, you could probably make that leap and say, well, maybe there's a big university there and it attracts a lot of young people, okay? Or maybe there's a military base located in that city, which also ends up having a lot of younger people, military personnel stationed on that base, okay? So when you see long bars and there's nothing else that you have in terms of data or information to explain it, and it's in those cohorts, that's something to kind of think about, okay? When you see those longer bars in the 25 to 50 area there, and the bars are longer, and then you've got bars below them that are shorter, then that's telling you that there's something going on, right? Maybe there's some really tough economic situation going on where people who typically are in the wheelhouse of their child rearing bearing years, okay, in a lot of countries, especially in your more developed countries, kind of that 25, more like almost like 25 to 40, but we'll extend it out to 50 for this. But that's where you have most of your people who either are having children, raising children, that sort of thing. Okay, and there's probably a lot of you, that have parents that are kind of in their 40s, heading into towards their 50s, that kind of a thing. Okay, and you're going to be home for a few more years, and you're going to fit right in with that. But it tells you if the bars are longer there, then there's something going on where they're not having as many kids. And it could be an antinatalist policy, that is where the government is trying to do something to discourage childbearing, whatever may be behind that. Or it could be just because it, really tough, whether you're dealing with really high inflation or you're in the middle of a recession or a depression, those kinds of things. Okay. And then when you see the longest bars way up there at the top, okay, and all those older cohorts, it means that you could deduce from there that, okay, that must mean that it's an area that attracts a lot of retirees. Maybe it's one of those kind of snowbird kind of centers like Florida or Arizona, or maybe one of those Sun Belt states. And you could potentially also deduce that maybe it means there's not going to be as many jobs available. Okay, now that's kind of it's kind of a loaded one there because there may be jobs available. They may be in healthcare because usually older people, 65 and over, have more need of healthcare than younger people. And so, if your job area, your training, your career expertise areas in healthcare, that might not be a bad thing, but it could be overall a kind of a depressant on job availability if you see those long bars with cohorts at 65 and above. Okay, and then go back to my Qatar example for D. All right, again, for parts of the world, culturally speaking, they're kind of stuck a little bit more in those traditional roles, in terms of men and women. You see those longer bars on the male side. It may be that there's something going on in that country that is requiring the use of more males for some of those kind of like construction and things like that. Okay, all right. And then let's see, I'm going to see how much further I'm going to take this. And, oh yeah, no, we're almost here. Okay, so dependency ratio. Let's get this into the mix. Again, some of this is just going right back in the smack dab into some of our vocab. Okay, and so this one, yeah, it's kind of you take a look at all of the people in a population group who are able to work. You're able to take all the people who are basically those who are too young to work, too old to work, and so usually it is defined as that 15 to 64 years old. They are the kind of the more the dependent population, all right, and basically you just kind of work it into a division and come up with a ratio, all right? Non-working members of an area. There we go, all right. And there you go. Potential workforce is going to be right in there between the ages of 15 and 64. All right. There would be make up the people who most likely are going to be working, and then the dependent population. All right. And like I said, dependency ratio is just kind of working with those two. If you've got numbers attached to both of those, percentages attached to those, you can work it out from there. And to get over here to the last part of this we'll cover. There we go. All right, calculation, workforce divided by dependence equals, there you go. You got it, okay? That's just kind of how it works, your dependency ratio. Okay, and matter of fact, boom, that's it. We don't even need that. We don't even need that. Matter of fact, get out of there. All right, that covers us on the basics of everything we need to know with the pyramids. I guess the only thing I can add, if you want to get something else in your left column with this, is that we do use that dependency ratio, by the way. We can use population pyramids to help us to kind of estimate the dependency ratio. We'll work with a little bit of that later on. Okay, there we go. If you end up having questions on any of this, but next time we jump in the notes next week, we'll start making sure that any of those questions can be clarified. If anything that I described there to you was a little confusing or a little muddy, or I wasn't as clear as I should be, ask away. And then we're going to move on into kind of getting into the big picture of population growth and decline. One more area of that we'll cover connected to the topic of population. We still have yet to hit migration. That'll be the last part that we take on in Unit 2. All right, but that's got you covered. And hey, look at that, less than 25 minutes. There we go. Okay, make sure you get this in your notebook for next week because we'll probably hit the ground running on Tuesday. Thank you, and we'll see you